Hello, Fit Me family. This is your kickoff message for the week. I'm super excited for you to get this. Remember, these kickoff messages are designed for you to listen to while you're getting ready for your week. Maybe you're doing some meal prep. Maybe you're getting your laundry organized. Maybe you're planning out your routine, or you're picking up around the house, or you're just sitting quietly listening. These are designed to listen at the beginning of your week and connect with your coach about this and to utilize this information to help you with your goals. So last week, we talked about protein. I really broke down how much protein do you need, why do you need it, why it's so important. So I thought it would be really helpful that we spend the next 2 weeks talking about the other two macro ingredients, which are carbohydrates and fats. So we're talking about carbohydrates, everybody's frenemy, right? Like, I think carbohydrates are the frenemy, because if you haven't heard that term, I think it's like a combination of friend and enemy together. So carbohydrates have been the demon, right? Like, the keto craze has been going on for years. Before that, it was Atkins, and carbs were the enemy. Even in more diets that are like in CrossFit gym settings or boot camps that are like more paleo oriented or Whole30, carbs are the enemy. Meanwhile, back in the 80s and early 90s, carbs were the winner. Carbs were the choice. Fat was the enemy, right? Low fat crackers, low fat yogurt, low fat this, low fat that. Carbs were a-okay. You could have added sugars. You could have all this other stuff. Fat was the enemy. And for most of us, we have a frenemy style relationship with carbs, right? Because carbs tend to be those delicious, sort of like hyper palatable, which means like easy to overeat, nutrition choices. Maybe when we're feeling stressed or we're feeling snacky or we're in a social setting, it's the carbs, right? It's the carbs. So let's talk about carbs, and let's talk about if it's something that we need. Why do we need it? How do they help our body? And how do we know what to eat? So first, carbohydrates are an essential macronutrient for the body. However, carbs are the macronutrient we can actually live without. So you truly can, and this is part of like the keto craze, move to the Antarctica and not have carbohydrates. They did it up there, right? Like, they almost all had like whale fat and seal blubber, and there were no fruits and vegetables in the winter, right? So they basically had no carbohydrates, and our bodies actually can function with no carbohydrates. So first, that's your first piece of information. But is that ideal? No, right? Carbs are an essential macronutrient for our body. And here are some of the things that carbs do for us. Carbohydrates are our body's favorite source of energy. So when we consume carbs, they're broken down into glucose, which is used by our cells to produce energy. And glucose is really easily available and converted into energy. So carbs are really important for exercise and mental activities. So believe it or not, that's why, like, when you crave that sugar and you feel instantly better, boom, readily available energy, right? Carbs are also helpful for brain function. Brain relies on glucose as its primary fuel source. So it requires a steady supply of carbs to maintain cognitive function. So that's one of the things actually people talk about when they go keto, is they're not reliant on the up and down. You've probably heard that before. That's what they're talking about. When we have consistent, steady meals, we don't feel that like dip in our brain energy. And so that is one of the things people talk about when they're like, oh, I don't have carbs. I don't have any of those dips anymore, because our brains actually really like carbohydrates. Third, and probably the most important, I think, is muscle fuel. Carbohydrates are crucial if you're going to do athletic exercise. Huge, huge, huge. So during exercise, our body utilizes that glycogen. It's stored in the form of glucose in our muscles and our liver. And so when we do exercise, when we use our body, when we sweat, when we use up all of our energy, we actually need to restore it with carbohydrates. So when we're eating, we're not like fueling up for the next thing, really. We're actually restoring what we used up in the past thing. Next, carbs are really important for metabolic function. So they actually impact different parts of the metabolic processes in our body. They help us regulate blood glucose level. Carbs help metabolize fats, and they are an important part of our body's pH system, believe it or not. A lot of women actually have hormonal consequences when they go low carb, and this is one of those reasons. So men tend to get away with doing a lot more manipulation with their carbs, where if you may have known someone, or this may have been true for you, where you have gone low carb for an extended period of time and then actually had metabolic or hormonal kind of byproducts of that. And so it is a dangerous game for women to go completely low carb, because it actually does impact our hormones and our metabolism. And then last but not least is fiber. So fiber is, important, and we usually get it from carbohydrate sources. It adds bulk to our diet. It promotes good number 2 movements, and it helps prevent constipation. It also helps us feel full. So all of that good stuff. And then last is like just as a nutrient source, right? So think about a sweet potato and all that nutrition that's in there. Carbohydrate rich foods like fruits and vegetables are really good for us. And so including those kind of carbs in our diet actually is a positive. So believe it or not, right? Carbohydrates are not the enemy. And they also can have really important and positive impacts on the things that our body needs to do, right? It needs to think, it needs to have energy, it needs to be able to exercise, it needs to have bowel movements, we need to have good metabolic systems and hormone processes, like all of those things together. Carbohydrates actually play a role in that. So what's the big deal, right? Why can't we just go ham on carbs? Well, here's the deal. Not all carbs are created equal, right? And carbs do impact our blood sugar. So when we choose things like more complex carbs, like whole grains, fruits, vegetables, we get a much more sustained energy level. And then we also have more of the nutrition, right? Like think about a sweet potato versus a gummy bear. They're both carbohydrate sources. They both do some of the same things in our body, but one has a lot more nutrition than the other one. And so when we compare it to like simple carbohydrates, like sugary snacks and processed foods, we can see that some carbohydrates are just not the same as others. Also, carbohydrates that have fiber in them tend to digest more slowly. They have more bulk, right? Like if you think about, you could drink a liquid sugar versus eating a orange. So you could have liquid juice, orange juice, or you could have an orange. They are kind of the same, but they're not the same, because one's going to slow you down. One has the bulk still. One has a lot of the fiber in it. The other one has been essentially squeezed into just a juice. It's had some of that fiber removed. It's going to be much faster to consume, and our body doesn't quite treat it the same way. And one is significantly easier to overdo than the other. Right? And so not all carbs are created equal, which is why in Fit Me, we have this suggestion when we're talking about Fit Me plates that we want to go as close to the quote ground as possible. And what we're saying is go as least processed as possible, right? So if we're thinking about like, should I have a tortilla? Well, I don't know. They're fine. Tortillas are reasonable. It's a carbohydrate source, right? Is tortilla probably better than a muffin? Yes, because a tortilla probably has less sugar. A tortilla is like less processed, probably has less ingredients. And again, like if I had to pick between the two, I'd probably suggest the tortilla, not the muffin, even though they both have carbs in them. If I could say like, hey, could you pick like a mixture of vegetables versus having like a flour tortilla every day? I would probably tell you to go with the vegetables if you had the choice, right? There's going to be more nutrition in there. There's different stuff. It's going to slow you down a little bit. It's going to make you feel more satisfied. There's more bulk. But is there anything wrong with the tortilla? No. Fruit is a carbohydrate source, right? So when we're talking about Fit Me plates, including fruit is a great way to do that. And so when we're looking at a Fit Me plate and we're saying, hey, I want you to go as least processed as possible, it doesn't mean that there's black and white. There's no black and white line, right? Where does rice fall? Where does oats fall? Where do sweet potatoes fall? Where do tortillas fall? Where does whole grain bread fall? Where does sourdough bread fall? Where does white bread fall, right? Like there's a spectrum. Where does gummy bears fall? I said gummy bears a bunch of time. I must really want some gummy bears today. So carbohydrates, there's this like big spectrum, right? When would I eat Gummy bears? I don't know. I actually probably would eat gummy bears if I was doing like intense exercise, right? I just did this crazy 24-hour workout thing. Perfect time for gummy bears because I've tapped all my carbs. I need quick energy as fast as possible. I can 100% use those to like restore some energy, to get a little bit of boost. I actually ate a bunch of Sour Patch Kids, and at the 24 WOD salute, and it was really good. And so it's not that you can never have those things. It's like, well, what's the purpose of carbohydrates right now for you? Are we trying to feel full? Are we trying to feel like we can have a balanced nutrition plate? Are we trying to get some energy because we've been out hiking for all day? Are we trying to enjoy a sweet treat with our kids because it's a special occasion and we're just saying like, hey, I'm totally fine with having a little bit of candy because it's fun and we're going to have it. Carbs, there's this spectrum, right? And at the end of the day, a portion size of carbs is something that's going to be helpful for you to measure, because carbs are easy to overdo, right? Like if you gave me an option of how much rice I want to have all the rice. I want to have all of it. If you gave me the how much pasta do I want all of it. I want all of the pasta. I want all of the Sour Patch Kids. And so again, carbs serve this great purpose in our body and we can absolutely have them. They are not the enemy. However, measuring your portion sizes is going to be important with carbohydrates because it's very easy to overdo it. It is not as easy to overdo chicken breast as it is to overdo rice or pasta. And so I encourage you this week to take a look at all of your carbohydrate sources. I want you to get familiar with them. That is your target for the week. I want you to look at what are the primary sources of carbs in your diet. How much are you eating? Are you paying attention to the portion sizes? Do you need to measure portion sizes? Is it worth it for you to invest in maybe some prepackaged carbs, right? So I actually really like the single servings of rice. Why? Because I can microwave it in 1 minute, throw it on my plate, and it's already portioned for me. Fruit is already portioned for you. It's so much easier to have one apple than it is to worry about like how much apple juice should I drink. I've never drank fruit juice. So I want you to look at where are your carbs coming from. If you're having something with a label, flip it over. See if there's carbs in there. If you're having bread, flip it over. See if there's added sugar. Look at how many carbs are in there. There's no black and white about this, right? It's what's working for your body, what's not. Is it making you feel full and satisfied, or is it making you hungrier? Are you using it as a mindless snack, or you're using carbs as energy? Are you enjoying it as a treat sometimes, or is it a crutch because when your mood fluctuates, you reach for the sugar treat? So now that you know more about carbohydrates and how they can have a positive impact on your body, remember that not everybody is different. If you are super duper active, you're going to need more carbohydrates in your regular diet than someone who is not super active. If you are competing in any kind of adult recreational sport, you might need more carbohydrates than someone who is not. If you have blood sugar issues, if you have issues with diabetes or any pre-diabetic, you might need less carbohydrates than someone who is, again, running 5Ks every day. So remember, not everybody is created equal. Talk to your coach about your carbohydrate choices. See if you can't make an improvement or a more informed choice, and let us know if you have any questions. So hopefully this is helpful. If you need some ideas of quality carbs to include in your diet, make sure you talk to your coach about that. They can help guide you onto what would be some solid choices, and let us know if you need anything. So have a great week, guys. Take care. Bye.